People always said Mark and I had the kind of marriage others envied. Light-hearted, honest, respectful. We weren't glued at the hip, and that was part of our magic. I loved that we could breathe in our own separate spaces, girls' nights for me, poker nights for him, and still feel completely connected. There was never any jealousy, never a need to check in constantly. We trusted each other. At least I thought we did. That evening, he walked into the kitchen, casual as ever. "I'm heading to the bar with the guys," he said, grabbing his wallet. "Just to unwind a little." I looked up from the laundry basket, smiled, and wrapped my arms around him. "You deserve it," I said, planting a soft kiss on his cheek. He smiled back, that same crooked grin I'd fallen for years ago. And just like that, he was gone. I didn't even think twice. Why would I? I poured myself a glass of wine, thinking maybe I'd order sushi or watch one of those feel-good movies I secretly love. The house felt calm, settled. I had no idea that as I stood there, soaking in the silence, my entire sense of reality was about to shift, all because of one unexpected phone call. It was my best friend, Lila. Her voice, as usual, was bright and impulsive. "Come have dinner with me. I need to vent, and you're not allowed to say no." I laughed. That was Lila. Dramatic, a little chaotic, but always a spark in my life. I glanced at the time. Why not? Mark was out, and honestly, I could use the company. "Give me 20 minutes, I told her, already heading to the bedroom to change. I slipped into something casual but cute, spritzed a bit of perfume, just a habit, and grabbed my purse. The night felt fresh, wide open. I remember thinking how grateful I was for simple things. A warm breeze, a night with a friend, a husband who I didn't need to worry about. I backed out of the driveway, humming to myself, feeling steady, unaware that the next few minutes would burn themselves into my memory. Driving down the main street, something caught my eye. Mark's car. Parked outside one of those cozy, dimly lit restaurants, the kind made for hushed conversations and first kisses. My stomach didn't drop, not yet. I slowed down, curiosity tugging at me like a loose thread. That's when I saw him. Through the window, sitting across from a woman I didn't recognize. Leaning in, smiling, holding her hand. Time stopped. I don't even remember breathing. I just sat there in the driver's seat, my hands frozen on the wheel, watching a man I thought I knew become a stranger behind glass. There was something so intimate about the way he looked at her, like she was a secret he didn't want to share with the world. And in that moment, I realized I was never meant to see this. The woman was younger. Pretty in that curated way, like someone who practiced her smile in the mirror. But it wasn't her that stunned me, it was him. The comfort in his body, the casual touch, the way he didn't glance around once, didn't worry about being caught. As if this wasn't a one-time mistake, as if she was already familiar. My heart didn't shatter, it clenched, like it was bracing for a hit that hadn't fully landed yet. Lila was still waiting. My phone buzzed in the console, her name lighting up the screen. I hit decline. Then I opened our text thread and typed with a calm I didn't feel. Actually, I just changed my mind. Something came up. I stared at that restaurant window once more, took a slow breath, and made a decision I didn't see coming, not even for myself. I didn't drive away. I should have. A smarter version of me might have turned the car around, gone home, poured another glass of wine, and pretended I'd seen nothing. But I couldn't. My body wouldn't let me. Instead, I pulled into a parking spot across the street and just sat there, staring, trying to connect the man I married to the man inside that candlelit room, touching someone else like she was his favorite chapter. Everything in me felt twisted. Not rage, not sadness, not even shock, really. It was more like displacement, like I'd walked into a life that wasn't mine. I kept thinking, he said the bar, he said the bar. Those words looped through my mind like a broken song. And each time it chipped away at the reality I thought we'd built. A waitress walked past their table, smiling. She must have thought they were a couple, a real one. I wondered if he tipped well. If he told that woman the same jokes he used on me. My hands itched to take a picture, to have proof, to anchor myself in the truth of what I was seeing. But I didn't. I didn't need evidence. I had something sharper, clarity. I watched him lean in closer. He laughed at something she said. His head tilted just the way it did when he used to laugh with me. I studied every detail. Her hand resting lightly on the table, his fingers inching toward hers, the way he scanned her face like he was memorizing it. Intimacy like that doesn't come from nowhere. This wasn't new. This had history. And I was the only one in the dark. My heart wasn't racing. It was still. There was a strange calmness inside me, like the moment right before a storm breaks. I think it's because I wasn't heartbroken yet. I was suspended in that space between suspicion and confirmation, where you're still hoping you misunderstood until you realize you didn't. And once I saw them laugh together, that quiet, soft laughter meant only for two. That was it. The hope was gone. My phone buzzed again. Lila. Still waiting for me, still unaware that our girls' dinner had turned into something else entirely. I stared at the message she sent. Where are you? Should I order wine? I typed back, actually, something came up. And with those words, I wasn't canceling dinner. I was canceling the version of my life I thought was real. I turned off the engine and sat in silence. The only sound was the soft tick of the cooling car and my own breathing, steady but shallow. My fingers tapped the steering wheel without rhythm, like they were searching for something to do, something to hold on to. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. What I felt was colder than that, like the beginning of detachment, like watching a bridge slowly burn and realizing, you're ready to let it fall. That's when I made the decision. Not out of impulse, not from revenge, from instinct. I needed to see it closer, needed to look him in the eye while he sat there, in this new world he'd built behind my back. I didn't plan what I was going to say. I didn't even fully know what I was going to do. But I knew I couldn't just drive away. Not tonight. Not quietly. I grabbed my bag and opened the door. The night air hit me, cool and clean, like the truth itself. I crossed the street with a calm that surprised even me. Step by step, I walked toward the entrance of that restaurant, toward the table, toward him, and toward the woman who thought I didn't exist. I walked through the door like I belonged there, like I'd made the reservation myself. The hostess barely glanced at me. I must have looked composed, polished, intentional. Every step toward their table was deliberate, not rushed. I saw Mark before he saw me. His laugh, her smile, that little private world they thought they were safe in. And then his eyes met mine. For a moment he froze. His expression flickered, shock, then confusion, then something close to panic. The woman turned, her smile still halfway formed, until she saw me standing there. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply pulled out the chair beside them and sat down. "Don't stop on my account," I said, placing my bag on the floor. "I was just passing by." The woman looked at Mark like she wanted him to explain, like she needed this to make sense. But Mark? He was fumbling. Words caught in his throat, hands twitching slightly, face pale. I smiled, not cold, just detached. I wasn't there to fight. I was there to witness. And nothing rattles a liar more than a witness who isn't playing by the script. I waved a waiter over, calm as ever, and asked for a glass of red wine. "Something dry," I added, like I had all the time in the world. Mark opened his mouth, probably to explain, to fabricate something soft and digestible. But I held up a hand. "No need," I said gently. "This is the most honest I've ever seen you." That shut him down fast. The woman shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. She tried to pull her hand back, the one Mark had been holding so confidently before I arrived, but I noticed he didn't reach for it again. I sipped my water while we sat in that thick, awkward silence. I could feel the tension in their bodies, tight, nervous, embarrassed. Good. Then I leaned in a little, still smiling. So, how long has this dinner been going on? Monthly? Weekly? Or just tonight's special? I asked, keeping my voice light, conversational. I didn't raise an eyebrow. I didn't flinch. I wanted them both to sit in the weight of the question, because sometimes silence speaks louder than a scream, and right now, it was roaring. Mark finally tried to speak, his voice low and strained. Karen, this isn't what it looks like. The classic line. I let out a soft laugh, not amused, not bitter, just tired. Mark, I said, meeting his eyes, you're sitting in a romantic restaurant, holding another woman's hand, and you told me you were going to a bar with the guys. I'm not sure how many versions of this scene you think exist, but I'm only seeing one. The woman started to speak too, maybe to apologize, maybe to defend herself. I honestly didn't care. I wasn't there for her. I was there for clarity, for closure, for power. I took another sip of wine as if I were at any ordinary dinner, as if I hadn't just stepped into the ruins of my marriage. And that's what rattled him most, I think. Not the discovery, but my composure. I wasn't playing the role of the broken wife. I was rewriting the script altogether. Eventually, I stood up, slow and steady. No dramatic gestures, no last words, just one small, deliberate act. I slipped off my wedding ring and placed it gently on the table. You two go ahead and finish your meal, I said, adjusting my coat. I've already lost my appetite. I walked out of that restaurant and into the night like I was stepping into a new version of myself. There were no tears, no shaking hands, no dramatic collapse on the sidewalk. Just the sound of my heels clicking against the pavement and the realization that I wasn't broken. I was done. And that's a very different kind of power. It was like a door had closed behind me, and this time I wasn't reaching for the handle. That night I didn't call anyone. I didn't rant or cry into a bottle of wine. I packed, quietly, precisely. I took only what was mine, left everything else where it was, like I was stepping out of a house I no longer lived in emotionally. The silence was loud, but it didn't scare me. It felt clean, like the air right after a storm. I didn't even leave a note. I figured the empty drawers would do the talking for me. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. Not out of vengeance, but clarity. I started combing through our finances, bank statements, credit card records, and sure enough, the lies weren't just emotional. They were logistical. Hotel bookings, restaurant receipts, charges that suddenly made sense. He hadn't just betrayed me in heart. He'd left a trail wide enough to walk through. The more I uncovered, the calmer I became. It's funny. People think devastation looks like sobbing on the bathroom floor. Sometimes it looks like spreadsheets and screenshots. I documented everything. Names, dates, locations. And with every new piece of evidence, I felt less like a victim and more like a woman reclaiming her narrative. He wanted to build a double life. I just made sure he couldn't hide it anymore. I didn't explode. I exposed. Quietly. Strategically. First, I sent the screenshots to his parents, two people who once toasted to our marriage and called me the best thing that ever happened to their son. Then I sent them to his employer. Ethics clause, company policy, all of it written in black and white. And finally, I sent a carefully curated batch to a few of our mutual friends, just enough to make sure the truth circulated without me ever having to raise my voice. As for Mark, he was left trying to pick up the pieces of a life he thought he could compartmentalize. The fallout was swift. His job, on probation, his parents, silent, his friends. Some reached out to me in disbelief, others didn't know what to say. And the woman from the restaurant? She disappeared so fast I doubt she even asked if he was okay. I never once confronted him after that night. Not in person, not over the phone, not even in a text. There was nothing left to say that my silence hadn't already screamed. He sent messages, of course, long ones, short ones, voice notes filled with apologies and excuses. I didn't open a single one. When someone shows you who they are, truly shows you, you don't owe them an encore. I moved into a quiet little apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I bought fresh flowers for the kitchen and a new set of wine glasses, just for me. I filled the silence with music I hadn't played in years, lit candles at night, and started sleeping through till morning. It was peaceful, even if it wasn't always easy. But healing rarely is. What surprised me most was how quickly I stopped missing him. Or maybe I just stopped missing the version of him I made up in my mind. I realized he wasn't taken from me. I released him. And in doing so, I made space. Not just in my home, but in my heart. And though I wasn't quite sure what came next, I was certain of one thing. I would never shrink myself again just to keep someone else comfortable. The messages kept coming. At first, they were full of denial. It wasn't what you think. You're overreacting. Then came the guilt trips. You didn't have to destroy everything. And finally, the pleas. Can we talk? Just once? I never replied. Not because I didn't have words, but because I had nothing left to give. My silence wasn't about punishment. It was about peace. He thought I'd fall apart without him, that I'd unravel slowly, regretting the quiet way I walked away. What he didn't expect was the strength, the stillness, the joy that returned to my face once he was out of the frame. I didn't just survive, I thrived. I rebuilt my days without him in them, and to my surprise, they felt lighter, freer, more mine. I started saying yes to things again. Dinner with friends, last-minute weekend getaways. Laughing until my stomach hurt over wine and old memories. My world, once built around keeping everything together, was suddenly blooming in new directions. And each time I felt the sun on my face, each time I caught myself smiling for no reason, I realized he hadn't broken me. He'd released me. I think the hardest part for him wasn't the exposure or the consequences. It was the silence. He couldn't argue with it, couldn't twist it into something else. He was used to me soothing things, fixing messes, making space for his better side to show up. But this time, I gave him nothing to lean on. And without my presence as a cushion, he had to feel every jagged edge of his choices. Meanwhile, I stopped looking back. I stopped wondering why or how long. I let go of the obsession with details that used to keep me up at night, because the truth was simple. If someone's actions make you question their love, you already have your answer. And mine had been handed to me, at a table I never should have had to sit at. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about reclaiming my place, my voice, my life. The irony is, for all the scheming and hiding he did, it only took one moment of truth to bring everything down. And I didn't have to shout, didn't have to throw a scene. All I had to do was show up, look him in the eye, and walk away. Weeks later, I was at dinner again, but this time the energy was different. I was surrounded by friends, real laughter, plates being passed around, glasses clinking. No tension in my chest, no fake smiles, just lightness. Someone raised a toast, and for a moment, I caught my reflection in the window, radiant, alive. Not the woman who was betrayed, but the woman who walked through fire and came out golden. Then someone leaned over and asked the question that always comes. How did you keep your composure that night? I smiled, slow and sure. And I said, because I wasn't just sitting at the table, I was setting it, for my revenge. The table, the wine, the silence, it had all been intentional, not for spectacle, for liberation. And as the conversation drifted into stories and jokes, I looked around and felt something I hadn't in a long time. Gratitude. Not for what I lost, but for what I refused to hold on to. I didn't just leave a man behind. I left a version of myself that believed love meant sacrificing my instincts. And what I gained in return was everything.